Hey everyone, welcome to the video. This we're breaking down the Monday Night Football Showdown Slate, the Giants versus the Cowboys. Anyway, before we continue, if you could leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out, and I really appreciate it. We should be getting to 3,000 subscribers pretty soon, so thank you guys for all the support on here. It's pretty awesome. Hopefully we can get there soon. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at ChrisPennell16. And if you're interested in the spreadsheets about every single week for the NFL season, links are in the description below for my Patreon, as well as NBA content as well. I think that's about enough plugging. I say we get right into the video. So first off, I just want to say this slate is loaded with fun fantasy options, so I am looking forward to this. Now, we can't fit in all of these studs because there's a ton. So it's going to be tough to pick which ones we want to leave out of our lineups, which one we want to plug in. But we will figure it out. And so we do have two of the best running backs in the league facing off, and I guess that's where we're going to start. So let's start with Zeke at 11,600. He's the most expensive guy on the slate, and I guess that's deservedly so. So obviously, yeah, I do like Zeke, and there's no reason not to on this slate. The Cowboys are 7-point favorites, which I always love out of my running backs, as it tends to lead to a positive game script, and this is also a really good matchup versus the Giants. They're in the bottom half of the league when it comes to points given up to the running back position so far this season. And Dallas is third in offensive line adjusted line yards this season, and should be able to open up plenty of holes for Zeke to run through. And probably the most important thing here we get with Zeke is volume, and lots of it. He's averaging 23.5 total touches per game. That includes rushing attempts and receiving targets as well, which is fourth most in the NFL, only behind CMC, Fournette, and Dalvin Cook. He's also involved in the passing game too, not near the extent of Christian McCaffrey, but still he's seeing over 4 targets per game and a 15% target share, which is pretty solid. It's pretty obvious, so I don't really have to tell you anymore that you should probably play Zeke in your lineups, but I definitely would recommend it. And I don't know if you want to captain him. He does kind of break the bank there, and I do think there's maybe some better captain options. But if you want to captain him, I have no problem with that, but I think at the very least you should get him into your flex spot, as I do think Zeke is in for a big game. And then the next big running back, we got Saquon Barkley, 11,400. I mean, arguably the two best running backs in the league facing off, so it should be pretty fun. And you can't go wrong with either of these guys, and I really prioritize trying to get one or maybe both of them in the lineup, but I'd really try to get at least one in because you're getting all that guaranteed volume and talent. The matchup does sound scary versus Dallas, but it's really not too bad, as they've been pretty mediocre versus the run this season. They're 17th DVOA versus the run, and they're giving up 25.8 points per game to running backs, which is not that great. So they're in the bottom half of points given up, which is good for Saquon Barkley. Early in the year, Barkley had 20 fantasy points with 179 total yards and no touchdowns. And I know I said I like my running backs as favorites, but that doesn't really matter to me when it comes to It doesn't really matter when it comes to Saquon Barkley, because he's really heavily involved in the passing game. He's seeing over 6 targets per game, 6.5 if you want to be exact, and 21 total touches per game. So he's getting a ton of volume as well. I believe he's 9th in the NFL in total touches per game. But he's also one of the most dynamic players and big play threats in the entire NFL whenever he touches the football. So obviously I like Barkley, and I'd be terrified of fading him. But I do understand that we have 4 really nice spend-up options, and we can't afford them all. So you're going to have to leave one of them or 2 of them off your roster. I'm not saying one of these 2 guys should be faded, but including the next 2 guys, you can't play all 4 of these guys. So you're going to have to probably pick 2. Maybe you can fit 3 in. It's going to be tough unless you're going to have to punt with someone, which I really don't think there's very many good punt options. So if you're going to go with 2, I'm really not sure which one you should fade. I think they're all fantastic options, so you're going to have to go with the gut feel there, or just your personal preference, because I think these are all good spots. Saquon Barkley, he might just have the toughest spot here. Zeke's had a really good matchup versus the Giants. Dak has a really good matchup, and so does Amari Cooper. So maybe Saquon Barkley's the guy you leave out. It's going to be tough, though. I love Saquon Barkley, and the dude's just got, he's an elite top-tier talent, and he can do it all. So it's tough, but it really comes down to personal preference. We got Dak Prescott at 10,400. He's 1,000 cheaper than Saquon Barkley. And I do think I like Dak Prescott, a little bit better than I do like Saquon, because he is cheaper, and I think he has more upside too. And I love him here. It's a great matchup versus the Giants. In Week 1, he put up a massive fantasy point day. He had 36 fantasy points on 25 of 32 for over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. And he also had a perfect pass rating of 158.3. Giants have continued their trend of being awful versus the pass since that week. They're 28th DVOA versus the pass, and they're giving up the 9th most points per game to quarterbacks this season. I really don't see how Dak doesn't have a big game here, and he's my number 1 captain spot option, considering he's cheaper than Zeke and Barkley. And I think he has the highest upside of any 3 of the 3, in my opinion. And plus, you get a little bit of rushing upside too with Dak, which is always a nice floor booster and ceiling booster. So Dak Prescott, I like him a lot here, and he's been pretty good for fantasy this season. Yeah, he's had some down games, especially versus New Orleans, but 36, 28, 23, 8, that sucks, but 29 was good, 18's okay, 21's okay, but I think we can see near 30 points in this game. I'm not saying he's going to get 30, but I think he's going to live in that 25 to 30 point range. So I definitely like Dak Prescott here. I think you should probably get in your lineups. If you don't want to captain him, that's fine, but I think at the very least you should give him the flex spot. I think he's probably going to be the highest owned guy on the slate just because he's a quarterback at 10,400. And I think he should be the highest price player on the slate, and he's not. So I do like that. So Dak Prescott, he does make a lot of sense for me at 10,400. And obviously I like his number one option, Amari Cooper, at 10,000. And there's just so many top-end talent options in this slate, and Amari's another guy in that category. It's just tough to pick all of these guys. I mean, you can't. So you have to pick a couple of them. I'm not sure which one you want to do yet. But, I mean, Amari Cooper, he could blow up and completely break the slate here versus the Giants. They're have a bottom-tier secondary, and obviously Amari is uber talented. And like I said earlier, they're the 28th DVOA team versus the pass this season. They're giving up 44.6 points per game to wide receivers, which is second most in the entire league. He also has PFF's second best wide receiver versus cornerback matchup of the week, as he should see a lot of DeAndre Baker and Janoris Jenkins in coverage, and that's something they have not been doing a lot this season. They have not been covering wide receivers very well. Baker has PFF's fourth worst quarterback rating this season, and Jenkins just continues to get toasted each week. He's been graded out very bad as well. Only problem is I feel like I'd rather grab the RBs over him, but this is a fantastic matchup, and he did drop 25 points on these guys week one. It's a tough decision to make between these four, but it's really up to personal preference, like I said, because they can all go off. Amari Cooper, maybe just a little bit riskier because we do have to rely, through the air, and you're not going to get that guaranteed volume that Zeke and Saquon Barkley does. But Amari Cooper, man, it only takes a couple plays with him to just completely break a slate. I mean, we've seen it versus Green Bay, 226 yards, 14 targets, 11 catches, 42 fantasy points. I mean, it only takes a couple plays with this guy. He's got all the talent in the world. He's got big play upside, so yeah, I wouldn't completely fade Amari Cooper. If you're building multiple lineups, I'd want to have a ton of Amari Cooper. But if you're making one lineup, it's a really tough choice for you guys this week because we got Zeke, Saquon, Dak Prescott, Amari Cooper. So, it's tough. But I think they're all four fantastic options. I'd probably spread my exposure between the four of them, with Dak Prescott being my highest owned guy because he is my favorite out of this bunch. And then I think after that, we go down to Daniel Jones. So it's a pretty big price drop off there. We're in the 11 to 10K range. Then we go way down to the 8K range with Daniel Jones at 8K. And he's a quarterback, and he's relatively cheap here, but he's been hit or miss this season with two really, really good games and then some bad average games. And obviously, he's a quarterback. I was just saying he's pretty cheap for a quarterback is what I meant. But I do expect the Giants to have to throw the ball quite a bit here. They are 7-point underdogs, and quarterbacks in showdown slates always make some great plays because they generally have the highest floors with guaranteed production. It's just a matter of fitting them in with all the studs we have here. Dallas is 17th DVOA versus the pass, but they are pretty rough when it comes to points given up to quarterbacks this season, only giving up 14 points per game, which is the fourth fewest in the NFL. But he's only 8K, so Daniel Jones, he's definitely on my radar for the showdown slate because, relatively cheap for a quarterback. And, the Dallas defense isn't absolutely unstoppable, so I can see him having a pretty decent day, maybe toss a couple touchdowns, especially in garbage time. So I'm not saying the Giants are going to get absolutely blown out of the water here, but I definitely think they're going to be trailing, which would be a positive game script for Daniel Jones. Evan Ingram comes in at 7,800, and so we're on our seventh player we're talking about, and it's Evan Ingram. So that's just how deep this slate is. We got a lot of talent here, and we got just a ton of options. This is a pretty good matchup for Ingram, too. One they could look to exploit. Dallas has been very, very good versus wide receivers this season. I believe they're only allowing, I think they're top 5 in fewest points allowed to wide receivers, but they're giving up 15.3 points per game to tight ends, which is fifth most in the league, and we all know Ingram's upside. Week 1 versus Dallas, he had 14 targets, 11 catches for over 100 yards and a touchdown, good for over 30 fantasy points. Now, that was with Eli Manning, but still Ingram has had some big games with Daniel Jones before, like Tampa Bay when he went absolutely nuclear. What was that? Yeah, 26 fantasy points and that 75-yard touchdown. He only has a 16% target share, which isn't anything crazy, but he may go a little bit overlooked with all the options we have on the slate. I do like the idea of maybe a lower-owned Evan Ingram. I'm not saying he's going to be low-owned by any means at all, but maybe just a little bit lower-owned than he should be compared to other guys on this slate. And then next guy we got is Michael Gallup at 7,400. And, now we're on an 8th guy, and Michael Gallup is the guy we're talking about. And Michael Gallup's pretty talented, and I like him a lot here. He started the year off hot, but he has cooled off a little bit the past 2 games, but I still have a ton of interest here and might be a pretty good pivot off of Amari Cooper for some salary relief. If you can't get up to Amari Cooper, I think Michael Gallup's a very good option to go with. He's seeing quite a bit of target volume too. He's got a 23% target share and a 28% market share of the team's air yards. I already went over how good of a matchup this was for Amari Cooper, and the same thing stands for Michael Gallup here. He'll also draw one of the best wide receiver versus quarterback matchups of the week. I believe he's 3rd right now in just rankings overall for the wide receiver versus quarterback matchup this week on PFF. So I definitely like Gallup here, and I think he can have another big game. Week 1 versus the Giants, he had 7 catches for 158 yards and no touchdowns, but since before the past 2 weeks, he's been very good. 27, 12, 25. I know it's only a 3-game sample size, but it's not like he was awful either. He's got 11 targets the past 2 weeks. Just didn't really work out too well, but I like Michael Gallup a lot, 7,400. Maybe he's a little bit too pricey there, but not too pricey, I should say, but maybe a little bit pricey. I wish he was a little bit cheaper, but I think he's a fantastic play and a pretty decent pivot off of Amari Cooper if you can't pay all the way up for Amari Cooper, which I know that's going to be tough to do this week. Golden Tate at 6,800. I mean, was this our ninth guy? And we're talking about Golden Tate, and he's not a bad wide receiver. Shepard is out, which leaves Tate as the main receiver here, and he's been pretty good since week 6, scoring no less than 14 points in a game, and he has a 25% target share on the offense. I do have to imagine the Giants are in catch-up mode, and Tate should flirt with double-digit targets again. So I do think he's fine at this price, but Dallas has been tough on wide receivers, allowing near the fewest points allowed per game. I know 49ers are better than the New England Patriots and I think the Broncos, but they're right up there with fewest points allowed per game. But he should get there on target alone. I mean, 10 targets versus Detroit, 11 versus Arizona, 9 versus New England. He's been pretty darn good. So Golden Tate, I do like him at this price tag. I think he offers you some nice salary relief and some upside as well. Sterling Shepard's out. Can't play any of these quarterbacks. Cowboys defense, not too interested in them because I do have a lot of interest in a lot of these Giants guys like Engram, Golden Tate, Saquon Barkley. So really don't love the Cowboys defense here, and they are 5,400, and I just don't really love it. I don't think there's a lot of upside here. So Cowboys defense probably someone I'm not gonna have too much interest in. If you're building a whole bunch of lineups, hopefully maybe they'll get a pick 6 or something, but not someone I'm looking to put on my main lineup because I really don't think there's a lot of upside there. Jason Witten at 5,200. Well, he's pretty safe, but he doesn't really have a high ceiling or anything. He scored no less than 5 points in the game in this season, and pretty much gets 4 targets every single game. Besides week 6 versus the Jets, I mean seriously, 4 targets every game, 4, 7, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. So you know what you're getting with Jason Witten. There's not a lot of upside here, but he's not gonna do a lot of damage in the yards department. So you're gonna pretty much need a touchdown. The Giants have been so bad versus wide receivers this season. It's actually led them to being pretty good versus tight ends, because they're only giving up I think 7 points per game to tight ends this season, which is 4th fewest in the NFL. So I mean, I don't think they're very good versus tight ends. It's just how bad they are outside. But Jason Witten, I think he's fine, but I don't think there's a lot of upside there. Wish he was a little bit cheaper. Darius Slayton at 5K. He's interesting, especially with Sterling Shepard being out. Definitely helps that he is out. But he isn't going to score 2 touchdowns every week like he did last week, where he had 19 fantasy points, 2 catches, 2 touchdowns. That's not going to happen every single week. And if he doesn't score, you're probably going to be pretty disappointed. He is playing a ton of snaps, though. He had 98% week 6. He's at 98% week 6, 97% week 7, then 84% last week. So he's not a write-off by any means, but he's not a core play. But I think he'll be fine, but not someone I'm overly in love with. I think he's going to have to score for you to have a huge fantasy day, obviously. I mean, just for you to be happy. I don't think he's going to do too much damage in the yardage department or the reception department. But he has been seeing targets, so I don't hate him. But not someone I'm overly in love with. Randall Cobb, kind of in the same boat there, 4,800. He's cheap. He's seeing targets, but not someone I'm overly in love with, just like I said with Slayton. But I would get exposure to him if building multiple lineups. But it's a great matchup in the slot versus Grant Haley, so it's definitely one he can take advantage of. But not a core play for me. But if you have 4,800 left in your lineup and you have Dak Prescott, I wouldn't mind pairing him up with Randall Cobb. So, I mean, I don't hate it. 3 targets, 6, 6, 4, 6. He hasn't goosed you in any games, but really hasn't done much at all. I don't believe he has a touchdown. 1 touchdown versus the Giants. So, he has scored in this matchup. It was his best game of the season where he had 16.9 points. So, I don't hate it. If you want to throw him in there, makes some sense at 4,800. Cheap exposure to the Cowboys. Maher, I think that's how you say it. Maher at 4K. Now, obviously, I like him. I think he's going to be pretty popular. It's cheap exposure to the Cowboys offense. And he has a big leg. He showed it off for that 63-yard field goal, which looked like it could have been good from 70. So I don't hate him. The Cowboys should put up a lot of points here, so don't mind him either. I know it's not at home in the Dome, but he should be fine. I expect the Cowboys to be in good field position for most of this game. Should get a lot of field goal opportunities or just extra point opportunities. So I like him. Alder Grosas has been awful for fantasy purposes. I know you really can't project kickers, but he sucked for fantasy. Not saying he sucked as a kicker, but I mean, he does absolutely nothing. I guess he has sucked as a kicker, to be honest. He hasn't done anything. 2, 3, 2, 4, 6, 6, 2. That sucks. 5. I mean, he hasn't even got double digits, so I really don't have any interest in Rosas. I don't expect him to kick a whole bunch of field goals, so I'm going to have to pass on him. Tony Pollard would only make sense if Zeke didn't play for some reason. He missed the bus maybe, or he ends up getting hurt, which I can't bank on. Outside of a game versus Miami, he's done nothing this year. I mean, he had 13 carries for 103 yards, 24 points versus Miami, but outside of that, which it makes sense versus Miami because they were killing him. I mean, other than that, 2, 3, 0, 1, 3, 2. I don't have any interest in Tony Pollard. Tavon Austin's more of a gadget player. You're probably going to have to get on a lucky touchdown. Really isn't on my radar outside of maybe mass entry. I mean, he's had some okay games for fantasy, but I mean, you're banking on a gadget play touchdown pretty much. 8, 11, 3, 1, 1, Not really like Tavon Austin too much. Giants defense, no thank you. Blake Jarwin, you're going to need a lucky red zone bootleg touchdown, something like that. Mike Gallman, no thank you. Fowler, no. Olawale, no. Ellison, no. Latimer, maybe. 800. He's extremely cheap. He's going to be on the field. That's really all you can ask for at this price. He might be worth it as a punt with Shepard being out. It snaps around the 40% range, but he's also only 800, so we'll take what we can get at that price tag. Obviously, just a punt play, and you pretty much just cross your fingers and hope for the best if you do play Cody Latimer, but he might be able to let you fit in some studs. So that's pretty much going to be it. I have no interest in anyone else. Let's just try to build a lineup here. Don't plug and play this. I'm just playing around. So never even tried to do one yet. So let's see. We got Dak Prescott. I like Zeke. I don't know who we're going to fit. I don't think I'm going to be able to fit in Mark Cooper. Let's try Michael Gallup. Let's try the kicker. That's 5,700 left. That's not too bad. Maybe we can fit in Evan Ingram. 3,600. Don't love any of this. I mean, I like the lineup so far. I just don't love who we have left. Maybe we fit in someone like Golden Tate. We get 4,600. Don't love any of that either. This is pretty rough, so we'll see. We'll have to play around with it. Maybe if we drop down to maybe just Amari Cooper, but fading the running backs, I don't really like that idea too much, but maybe something like, I don't know. I'm just playing around. So, but I do like Dak Prescott in the captain spot. You'll be able to fit something, and you're probably going to have to step someone down a little bit, but I do like Dak in the captain spot the most, so we have to play around with it and see what we get. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for this video. If it was helpful, remember to leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. I really appreciate it. Follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And hope you guys had a good Sunday main slate.